All right. Well, I wanted to start by discussing the fact that we're living in a pretty complex era, and I'm curious what music means to you as a creator and performer at this moment in time.
Well, it's kind of my insulator, if you will. You know, that's that's what I do to get away from it all. And sometimes I write about it. It definitely influences, your creativity, and what you want to talk about, stuff like that. But music's always been a haven for me. It's where I can go and everything's cool for a minute. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I can't believe that we're where we are right now. So society and civilization, if you will. I thought it was a civilization. Um, it's really troubling, but I'm 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 kind of optimistic that it's the last big boom. I'm really hoping that pendulum is just gonna violently swing back, if you will. You know what I mean? That's my hopes anyway for my kids and my grandkids. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I can't believe what's going on. It's like some kind of crazy reality show. But what are you gonna do, man? Just ride the wave, try to get out, come out on the other side of it. You know.
Now, your 2018 album Special Teams has some pretty cogent songs about the reality we're living in. It's tunes like Are You Red or Blue, Nobody's Shooting Back at Me, Marathon Man. Tell me a little bit about those tunes and give me sort of a big picture view on that record.
Well, like the song "Are You Red or Blue?" That was, I mean, it's just talking about the big divide. I mean, I grew up in rural Ohio. Everybody I grew up with were farmers, or they lived next to a farm, or they worked on. You know what I mean? Just kind of those kind of folks, and they're good people. They're good people, but and a lot of them are still my friends today, and they lean super right. I mean, you know what I mean? They just do. And and of course, all my musical buddies, and not all of them, but most of them, um, they lean left. You know what I mean? And and I do too. In this current situation, I never thought much about politics, to be honest with you. I just would always vote for whoever I thought was the best, and I really don't think whatever party they were in determined anything for me. Going back nowadays is different. You got to pay attention now. Seems like, but I feel I still talk to my righty friends. And I go, I'm honest with them. I'm going, hey, I know if you're a dyed in the wool Catholic, you got to be against abortion, I guess, or God's going to strike you down or something. And I understand all that. I just don't understand the hostility that's all boiling up right now. I just don't get that. So, red or blue, I wasn't picking a side in that song. I was just asking the question, and because it's very frustrating to me, to have friends on each side so much that I don't want to ditch friends over. But a lot of times, a lot of my friends, I just think they've been duped, and I think they've been fooled, and I tell them that, and they still talk to me, and they still act like they like me anyway. Um, so and as far as that, ain't nobody shooting back at me, that was that's when we were still in Afghanistan. All the drone things started happening, and I just really kind of thought how, um, I mean, just being a soldier in the first place, having to take somebody else's life was one of the biggest fears of mine as a kid because I was in the Vietnam draft era. Yeah, in fact, my lottery number was 52, and I thought I was going bye bye because that's the year Nixon disallowed college deferments. Now, I had a college deferment, and somehow it snuck under the wire. I didn't call him up to ask him why, but so I didn't have to go to Vietnam. Um, but my biggest fear about thinking having to be a soldier would be like, can I really kill somebody? I mean, I just thought, I don't know if I've got that in me. There's probably a switch that goes off somewhere and all that, but nobody's shooting back at me. I just thought, how must you feel when you come home from work and you just offed a bunch of people remotely, on a screen, like a video game, and it just bothered me. It just popped up. I don't know where that's obviously where it came from, but yeah, that one. And Marathon Man, and that really wasn't that political. That was just kind of a humanitarian, like how we all got to just keep on rolling. You know what I mean? No matter how the landscape changes, or the business that you're in changes, or the career path has changed and all that. Just got to keep on rolling. That's kind of what I think that one was about. So anyway, I hope that explains it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your most recent band, Farm Cat, which released its debut album at the Ponderosa in 2023. Tell me about the formation of the group, who's in what you collectively explore.
Well, okay. So that band originally was the Tim Goshorn Band. Tim Goshorn was from the Goshorn Brothers. They all played in Pure Prairie League. They were Cincinnati royalty, if you will. You know what I mean? Really great musicians, great people. But anyway, Timmy passed away. You know, and and then Lee Everett, who was the keyboard player in that band, um, we started calling the band Friends of Lee, which sounded kind of like, are you guys from Alabama? But it was really Friends of Lee Everett. He passes away. So we get Pete Benoit play guitar. And the way we came up with the name Farm Cat was, we're in a barn. My friend Keith Pandorf has a farm, has a barn, and we've played several parties and stuff like that in his barn. And I always said, man, it sounds great in here. It'd be a great place to record. And so I called him up and said, hey, can we come up and record? And he said, yeah. So we get up there, and this little black cat is hanging out. It's our friend. It's rubbing all over us, licking us. We're feeding it. And I asked Keith, I said, man, your little cat loves it. And he goes, that's not my cat. That cat just strolled in. So we were calling her Farm Cat because we didn't know her name. Pardon me. And anyway, that's how the name happened. But Farm Cat is that's the name of the band. It is Randy Villars plays saxophone and keys, and he's been around forever. We played in the Bluebirds together. He toured the world with Bootsy Collins as a saxophone player. Then there's Pete Benoit on guitar and vocals, and Mike Fletcher, bass player, vocals, and we all wrote together. We wrote some stuff together, and we all had individual songs on it. And myself, so that's Farm Cat, and I guess we've got about 6 tunes ready. We got to grab a few more, and we'll do another one, probably at the barn. It's kind of cool up there.
Well, tell me about the sound you guys are going for and what you're distilling into the mix.
The what now?
Tell me about the sound of the band and the various elements you distill into its mix.
As far as Farm Cat goes,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a kind of a Randy Villars he's a real jazz guy. But I mean, he's played a lot of R&B and stuff like that. But there's that influence especially, I mean, in his keyboard playing and his saxophone playing. And Pete is he's kind of the newcomer, if you will. He had a career. He has a career as a real engineer. I think he's an electrical engineer. Has a real job, uh, and always came home and just practiced guitar. And he's really good. Uh, he's coming from the bluesy rock, Allman Brothers, yeah, kind of world. Um, and then Mike Fletcher, he's just been around the block. The bass player Mike, he was out in California for quite a while. He played with Bob Carlisle. I don't know if that name rings a bell. He had a hit record called Butterfly Kisses. But Mike's been through, not a genre specific career. He's played everything, kind of like me, kind of just played everything. And as far as country to crazy rock to prog rock, to whatever. So I don't know. I think the whole record kind of has little elements of all that, really. I mean, at least from my perception, it's and we're not really going for a specific sound. We're kind of leaving it alone and just seeing what comes out, And it's a lot of fun, really. The way we get together, we'll do a rehearsal, and it generally starts with somebody starts playing something, and so then we all just kind of meander in and see where it goes. You know what I mean? And sometimes it turns into a song, sometimes it doesn't. It's that kind of a band. As far as it's not like anybody's got a specific thing in mind and it's got to be this way or that way. It's pretty open. So that's the deal with that band. It's a lot of fun, you know. So that's pretty much Farm Cat.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Tim Goshorn, and of course, you've played and recorded extensively with him and his brother Larry. Tell me
Yeah,
what those experiences were like for you and what made them so important.
the Goshorns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, um, they were just so good. I mean, they were a perfect example of they were totally stylized. You know, I mean, the two of them playing together was pretty magical. I mean, they sang great together. Their guitar playing, they had a lot of double stuff worked out that I know they never sat down and worked it out. It just came out that way. And they're playing, their soloing really complemented each other. They were different. Larry definitely soloed different than Tim. You could tell who was playing solo. and and they were just such good dudes. You know what I mean? I miss both of them dearly, really. But they were just great guys, and they were just really great musicians. Now, that was the Goshorn Brothers, and then when Larry got injured and he had something going on with his heart, and he just decided, I'm done. So uh, then it was Tim, and it was like, okay. So, well, that was a whole different dynamic because he didn't have Larry to play off of. And we just put a bunch of songs together and just kept playing. And you could ask Tim, well, if you played a song, let's say you're doing a Steely Dan song. Yeah. Tim didn't sit down and learn the Steely Dan song. You know what I mean? He still just played it the way he was going to play. And that's what was so cool about those got Tim, and it's individually and collectively, they were just so like, here's what I do, man. And this is what you're getting. I love that. Yeah. It was just a lot of fun playing with them, really. Um, I'm really pretty honored actually to play with them. Billy Hines was their drummer, and he was one of the um, Pure Prayer. Well, he was the main Pure Prayer League drummer for a long time. I mean, that band existed for decades. And a lot of people were in and out. But I always thought Billy was really great, especially with the Goshorn Brothers. I mean, he had their lope, if you will. You know what I mean? They had a certain lope to them that was real individual, and I was pretty honored to take that chair, if you will. So it's just one of the. I'm just really happy it happens. For me, really.
All right, well, let's move on to Bucket, which also had a recent record called Wallomatic. Tell me about the journey of that band and how it relates to, I guess, a very unique drum kit you once had.
Well, yeah, Bucket came along. Um, I had been in the Bluebirds for a long time, like I don't know, 7, 8 years, something like that, and that split, and I decided I'm not going to play anymore. I'm done, you know. And so Lee Rothfuss calls me and he says, "Hey, man, we're playing." He and Mark Gillespie had um, a duo, and he said, "We're playing somewhere." He says, "Why don't you just come out and just bring something and just bang on it with us? It's just like some percussion." And I said, okay, And anyway, I had been in my garage and I had a 5 gallon bucket and I tossed it across the room, and it went thump. I went, that'd make a good kick drum, man. And so I kind of made this little kit out of stuff that wasn't drums. I hung the kick drum or the bucket and had my pedal beat upward like a cocktail kit or something. And I got some tin cans and a saw blade or two and you know what I mean, just stuff, and threw it all together and went down to where they were playing. And we had fun. It was fun. And so that's where the name Bucket came from. But anyway, it turned into a band, of course. And then Lee said, "We need a bass player." He says, "Call Bob." Bob comes down. And it was really just thrown together completely. And Lee Rothfuss, the guitar player, and really the main writer and singer in the band. Um, he had so many great songs. He's a really great songwriter, and so we just kind of learned his stuff, and then I'd throw in a few tunes, and Bob would throw in a few tunes, and we'd go out and play. It was fun. I mean, that's really how Bucket started. I bet Bucket has maybe had 2 rehearsals in 20 years or 25 years or however long we've been doing it now. It's just one of those bands that was always like um, we could play the song differently every time. you know, it was just kind of loose. For a long time, Mark Gillespie um, was in the band, and he ran off with he was Trace Atkins. He was his guitar player for probably 15 years, maybe more. And now he has recently left him, and he's down in Destin, Florida, playing. Lee used to play down in Destin too. That was a pretty good little spot for a true gig, a house gig with health insurance, stuff like that. But anyway, that's kind of how Buckets started, and it's really kind of remained that way. Um, we had a lot of fun doing this last record, you know what I mean? That we hadn't done one for a while. And in fact, we just did a song for our friend Ollie Rome, who is going through some health issues. And Ollie would always come to our gigs, and we'd always get him up to sing a couple. He's a great singer, and we just kind of finished a song for him. But we mailed it. It was one of those mail-in deals. Lee sent me an acoustic guitar with a scratch vocal on it. I put drums on it and sent it to Bob, and he put bass on it, and then we went to Ollie's house with a laptop and had him singing. It turned out pretty good. You'll be hearing it. You'll be hearing it soon. I'll send it to you. So
Oh,
that's pretty much Bucket. You know, Bucket. It's always makes me smile, band. You know what I mean? For sure. Love it.
fantastic. Well, you mentioned the Bluebirds, and this is a band that's had so many incarnations, big, small,
Yes.
quite a few very interesting records. Tell me about the history of that group and what it let you explore that was particularly unique and interesting.
Well, um, the Bluebirds started. I guess it was probably like it was 91 maybe or 92 around there. I had just left another long-standing band, Steyr Lee, and hooked up with Marcos, and it quickly became uh, myself, Marcos, Charlie Fletcher, and Mike Bainey. Mike Bainey was the bass player. Um, and it was just a super, I mean, it definitely leaned R&B-ish, you know, or what I call R&B anyway, old school R&B, I guess. It leaned that way, but it was so strong vocally that it was just like, I mean, everybody in the band could sing, you know. And I mean, Charlie Fletcher was just a great singer. Has you know, he had this crazy range, and uh, Marcos was had a real gruff voice, and I have my four good notes, and I work them real hard. And Mike Bainey, he was a piano tuner on the side, you know, and man, he could grab that note. You know, you got a three-part harmony with Mark, myself, and Charlie, and then you put that fourth note in there, depending on what that note is. I mean, it really can change. I mean, it could be a seven, you know, and that's pretty common, or it could be a six, or it could be a two. But all of those had to work within the framework of the song you're doing. You know, Bainey was just a master at finding that odd fourth note that would completely just make the harmony go Yahoo. You know what I mean? So now Mike wasn't with the band that long. He was on the first record. It was just entitled The Bluebirds, I guess. Yeah. And he moved on to go play with the Goshorn Brothers. um, and then really it was a trio for probably 7, 8 years, something like that. And just Mark and Charlie and I. Charlie played bass with his left hand, and he was extremely good at it. I really liked it. I always told him, I said, man, you know, bass players and drummers have a special relationship. And I said, man, you're rating real high here. You know what I mean? Um, he was just really good at it. So that band, and we did a lot of writing together. You know, that's kind of when the band kind of ceased for me, is when we kind of quit, you know, getting together and writing together, or bringing in a stem, if you will, you know, like, hey, I got this chunk, let's finish it off, or, you know, I like that a lot. And it kind of quit happening. It was almost like everybody was kind of just doing their own songs, and it was complete. And so, but then after that, I mean, I left that band for the Bluebirds for a while, and Chris Arducer filled my spot, and then I ended up coming back, and we were both in the band for a while. You know what I mean? It was like I'd play percussion and he played drums, or we'd switch and he played percussion. You know. Also, Teddy Wilburn was in that band at times. Who's another? I mean, he's just this off the chart drummer. Um, just fantastic. You know, can do it whatever he wants. You know. And then that band turned into a big, giant 8-piece band for a while. CC Thomas was the bass player who ended up being, uh, oh, what's her name? Stop in the name of love. Um, from the Supremes,
Diana Ross.
Diana Ross. He became her music director. He moved to California. He became her music director. I mean, it was pretty good. And Steve Schmidt played keys, and I mean, it was just a great band. That band, it was a Sunday night band. We would play Sunday nights at Allen's Cafe, and the Bluebirds had a gig there for, I think, 22 years. So in many, for a while it was a trio, for a while it was this, for a while it was that. But Mark Sastri's the leader of that band, the guitar player, and he, in fact, he just released a record. Just uh, Help Yourself, I believe is the name of it. He just released it, and a lot of those guys, I'm on it. Everybody I just mentioned is kind of on it. Chris is on it. Charlie Fletcher's on it. It spans a pretty good chunk of time. Some of the recordings. It's a really good record. But the Bluebirds were that was a band I had a lot of. Um, Coming from the Raisins to Staggered Lead to the Bluebirds. I, the Bluebirds, I thought this band's got a shot, man. You know what I mean? It was strong. It was really strong and wrote good songs. And I had some high hopes for that band, and I'm not disappointed, really. I mean, of course, we all wish we could have done better than we did, but I mean, I'm really grateful for the time I spent with that band. It was a lot of fun, you know.
You said
And we
whatever.
came up with a lot of good music. I mean, I play a lot of those songs at just about any gig I play. I can play some of the songs that the Bluebirds played, my tunes that we played, and they just translate. People think they know them whether they do or not. And so get away with stuff.
You
Yeah.
you said when the Bluebirds broke up, you didn't want to play anymore. What happened there?
Well, I mean, that's really when I left the band. I'm not saying that the Bluebirds, I don't think the Bluebirds ever broke up. They just changed members. You know what I mean? When I say I was in the band for probably, like 8 years, till about 2000 or something like that, from like 92 to, and so that's when I lost interest, or they lost interest in me, or things weren't as comfortable. So it just changed. And how it all goes. They're touchy relationships. Those bands, you know, but um, but we're still all friends. And I later ended up playing with Mark and Charlie. We had a gig. I mean, Charlie passed away. It's been a couple of years now. And so, like, 4 years ago, we were playing another Sunday gig. Me and Mark and Charlie, and Bob was playing bass. Bob was in the band for a chunk of time. And really, the last time the Bluebirds did a Sunday, Bob was on that gig for probably about 4 or 5 years. So it wasn't like we hated each other or anything like that. It's just things changed and we moved on. You know what I mean? Or moved around. Really, that's what it amounts to. But I don't know. I still, I'll still go play a gig with Mark. Today. If he called, if he got something tonight, if I'm not playing, yeah, I'll do it. You know. So I'm still a Bluebird, I guess.
All right, well, let's move on to Tickled Pink and have you tell me about its focus and what you explore with that group across its 3 records to date.
Okay, well, um, I had, of course, I'd been playing with Bob and the Raisins at one point, and Bob and I were in Bucket together at that point. Well, Lee Rolfus decides he's moving to Nashville. And he said, but I'll come up and still play some, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, that left a pretty good blank spot. And Scott Coverett, who is, well, Tickled Pink is Scott Coverett, Bob Neiswanger, and myself. Um, Scott and I had been together in Stagger Lee, and we had a side band called Curly, which was a trio. And I said to Bob, I said, let's just call Scott and see if he wants to play some. Because we weren't playing as much with Bucket because Lee would have to come up here from Nashville, blah, blah, blah. So that's really how Tickle Pink got rolling. And to be, and there was just another band where we had all played together. Scott and Bob grew up in Sylvania. Scott's another Sylvaniaite. You know what I mean? The Liverpool of the United States, as far as I'm concerned. All these guys came from Toledo, Sylvania, wherever up there. And I lived up there for a while, and that's where I met Scott. So anyway, Tickle Pink just kind of landed. And it was like we already had some tunes that we collectively knew together, either from this band or that band or da da da. So we could hit the ground running. We could go play a gig pretty quick, like. And and Tickle Pink was just another one where it was like we would actually rehearse. We still do. We rehearse every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. That's like old guy hours for band rehearsal. I love it. It's like, but anyway, we rehearse and we really just write together, or somebody's got a chunk, or somebody's got a song. It's like, let's learn this one. And we just do that. And it's not like we set out for anything specific in mind. Now, it is a rock band. That's a rock band for sure. Just the style that Scott plays. I mean, Scott's got some picker in him too. He can go. I mean, we played in a country band together. It was quote a country band, but enough country to play in a country bar. But Scott's got some of that in him. He's just a unique. He's got a unique style, and he's really good. Um, and I like his songwriting. I mean, he writes some up tunes, and so and we're a bit eclectic too. But I would say we're a rock band. You know what I mean? It's a rock band. We play loud, and Bob brings his big amp when we play. you know? But it's just another band where we just respect each other enough to go, hey, I got a song. Okay, let's learn it. Hey, I got a song. Or we'll sit down. We've written a few together, which I really like, the tunes that we did write together. Or I like how we affect a song that somebody else wrote. Everybody's open to like, yeah, do something to it. It's not like you have to play this guitar part. It's like play what hits you, man. It's that band, and we'll agree on it. Like so. It's just that that's what that band is. It's another comfort band. Oh my, everything I got right now, they're comfort bands. I don't have to worry about anybody's ego or anybody's. I mean, that's kind of number one on my list these days. It's like no a-holes, please. I'm not playing with a-holes. Not doing it. And and I think we all feel the same way, about, they're all comfort bands, man. I love these guys. I love the way they play. I love the songs they create. And that's where we're at with that for sure.
So the Bob we keep referring to is, of course, Big Bad Bob Neiswanger, and you have this multi-decade relationship and friendship with him. Tell me what's unique about working with him in terms of musical chemistry.
far as musical chemistry, Bob's one of those guys. I mean, he's he's extremely talented. We know that. Um, but he's extremely stylized when it comes to playing bass. It's like you know what you're going to get from Bob. You know what I mean? He's always on, but it's like he's stylized, and I don't really know where his style came from, but when End Whistle went down, I said, Bob, call him. Bob could have been in the Who like the very next day. You know what I mean? He just could. He's got a he's got that mid range growl. You know, um, he's just got a very unique sound, and just the way he attacks the bass is unique to him. And it's it's been a pleasure. I mean, I've been playing with Bob for 40 years, I guess. You know what I mean? Uh, and many different bands, and it's uh, we line up pretty good, man. I'd say, as far as it all goes. He's definitely put up with me because I'm sure I'm stylized too. In fact, when the Bears were looking for a drummer because Larry London decided he didn't want to go on the road, Bob said, "What about Bam?" And Adrian said, "We don't need James Brown in the band." Uh, so that tells me, I guess I'm a little stylized from somebody else's point of view. You know what I mean? But anyway, I love Bob. Bob is total Bob. That's what's cool about it. It's like you can pick his playing out no matter what band he's in. You can hear it and go, "Oh, that's Bob. Bob's playing bass on that one." You know.
Let me follow up on that Bears quip you just made. I didn't realize there were ever any other drummers in contention for that seat. What can you tell me about that?
Well, that's about all I have, really. I mean, I know when the Raisins broke up, um, Rob and Bob went with Adrian, and Adrian had been playing some with Larry London, legendary Nashville session drummer, played with, he was Elvis's drummer, world class drummer. That was the first drummer in that band. It was that was going to be the Bears, and but Larry, Larry was used to that. I live in Nashville. I go to the studio. I make good money. There's a drum set there. You know what I mean? I mean, he was used to that life that he had, which was not many people get to experience. I'm the A team in Nashville. I do multiple sessions weekly, sometimes daily. I mean, this guy was top of the line, and he decided that he and Adrian had been hanging out, I guess, and Adrian said, "Hey, man, I want to do this band, blah, blah, blah." And so they put that together. And now Rob or Bob can tell you way more details because I don't know the details. But I know that Larry decided he didn't want to go on the road. Yeah, I mean, they did some road gigs and stuff, I guess, and he decided, man, I can't handle it. Larry was an extremely big human being. I think it was hard for him to get around, and it was just too much work, the travel that you had to do and all that stuff. And he said, eh. And then they got Chris, and I always used to tell the Raisins, Chris is your real drummer, and I was a real drummer for 5 years, but those guys all grew up together. They all knew each other when they were, I mean, I think they knew each other when Chris was 12 or something like that. So I always used to say, he's your real drummer. I'm just filling in. But which was kind of true. But I made I made a lot of noise while I was there. So anyway, that's all I have on the Bears. You know what I mean? But that's how it went down, and that's what Adrian said about me. So he thought I guess he thought I was a little too funky or something. I don't know.
Well, since you mentioned the raisins, of course we have the raisins back, and that seemed like a temporary thing last year, but it seems to have turned into an ongoing band again. What's this resurgence been like for you?
It's been a lot of fun. Mainly just you know, getting together with all those guys again. I mean, I had not seen Rob much. You know, Rob, I would do a session for Rob when he was doing, commercial work and stuff like that. And I did jingles and stuff. I'd come in and sing them some, and I'd see him. And Ricky Nye was off being Ricky Nye, man. He was doing that boogie woogie thing internationally. I mean, he was doing great. But I would, I'd talk to him occasionally, but we weren't hanging out. So when we all got back together, it was a good hang, man. It was like catching up really, and really relearning those tunes. I mean, some of those tunes we had not been played for 40 years, or close to it, and so that was kind of challenging. It was like I don't know if I can hit that note anymore. You know, and why did I make that beat so complicated? Stuff like that. But it was a blast, and it was a lot of fun. Um, it was really the closest thing to a family reunion, the gigs, or the first one when we first got back together, and all these people that showed up that I remembered. You kind of, God, I have seen it all just came flowing back, and for me, it was that part of it was as big as any of it, really, to be honest with you. Just seeing those people that we would see on a Monday night in Clifton, and they were dancing, going crazy, and the place was full of smoke, and we were crazy and doing stuff we shouldn't have been doing and just having a blast. You know what I mean? And it all came back, and it's just awesome, really, man. I mean, it was. But anyway, on the musical side, it was like, damn, this is fun. This is good. I mean, these songs are. I mean, those songs that those guys, wrote back then was like they were really great songs, and we could still pull them off pretty good. You know what I mean? Nobody sings as good as they used to, including myself, absolutely. But we got it out enough to where, in the crowd, they knew the songs, so they would sing along and help us out, and it was just all positive, really. It was positive enough to where, Rob said, "You want to do another one?" And we're all like, "Sure, let's do another one." You know what I mean? So we did. I mean, what have we done now? We just finished the third one. We did this rooftop thing in Cincinnati, and that was cool. It was like, so I guess we're gonna do it again. I guess I'm allowed to say this in December. If I stepped out of bounds, sorry, but I don't think it's a big secret. Um, at, at at the Woodward again, So yeah, how many times we're going to do it, I don't know. For me, for my Christmas wish list, it would be that we could get together and do some new songs, or even uh, take some of the Everything and More songs that whole thing was put together, by like, hey, does anybody have a recording of this? Somebody comes in with a cassette that they, you know what I mean? People couldn't record on iPhones back then. It was like, who's got a recording of this and who's got and some of the recordings are not very good quality wise, but I thank God we got as many of them that we did, so the songs at least exist somewhere. But anyway, it would be fun to redo a couple songs, but I don't know if everybody's schedule allows that. So, but it doesn't really matter. But that would be fun for me. I love to record, and so it'd be cool to see how it turned out now.
So what do you make of how the Benz documentary turned out and what it captures?
I thought it was pretty cool, man. It's one of those things where it's just I have to put it in the and that's what happened category. You know what I mean? It's not like so many documentaries. They start off and it's like this struggling band, and they finally broke through, but we didn't. you know, and part of me is like, what we were, and on the minimal, tiny, maybe negative side. Um, Here's a one-hit wonder band that didn't make it. Uh, was a one-hit wonder, local one-hit wonder. It wasn't even a national one-hit wonder. But on the other side of it, I think it's uplifting for people to see how hard we worked and how diligent we worked and how much came out of it. And and everybody remained a musician, a full time. I still mean it. Um, I think it's uplifting in that respect. And everybody doesn't make it. Everybody, and of course, what does make it? What does make it mean? You know what I mean? In a lot of ways, we made it as good as you can make it. You know what I mean? As far as that all goes, we're fortunate that you know everything that happened and all the people that did embrace it still embrace it, and it's a part of their fabric. I mean, even the fans, the crowd, that it's part of their makeup now, and I feel pretty honored. You know what I mean? Um, so I don't know. That's what I got out of it. And I only watched it once, to be honest with you. Um, that's about how it affected me. I thought it was shot very well, and I mean, technically, it was great. I mean, he put a ton of work in it, and I appreciate that. You know what I mean? That somebody would be interested enough in us to do all of that. It's like very humbling, and I mean that. So that's that's about how I felt about the whole thing. It's like, wow. yeah.
All right, well, let's continue talking about bands, and we're going to go crazy deep back in time. Tell me the tale of working with the LeBlanc Car Band and how it yielded the 1978 album Live from Atlantic Studios.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So I'm living in Toledo, right? And I'm not with the Raisins. I don't even know those guys, really. I mean, I know who they are. I'd seen them play. They'd seen me play, but I was in a different band. I was in a band with Scott Coverett. I think it was called I think it was called Soundscape. Soundscape. Yeah. Um, Let me think here. Yeah. Anyway, that's right. So I'm up in Toledo, and no, actually, that was with that band Voyage. And that, I mean, I had been up there in a band with Scott called Soundscape, but this was called Voyage. And that band included Scott Henderson of Tribal Tech. I mean, Scott Henderson is a world-class fusion guitar player, right? This was kind of a fusion band, you know, and of course we weren't making any money, but anyway, I was in that band and things were getting wonky. Anyway, George Leist was the drummer for the Raisins, right? And Tom Flora was the keyboard player for the Raisins. And George Leist calls me up, or George Leist gave Lenny LeBlanc my phone number. And Lenny LeBlanc calls me up. And he says, "Hey, my name's Lenny LeBlanc. I'm in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And we got a record deal and we're going out on the road. Um, and we have the same manager as Leonard Skinner, Peter Rudge." And I'm like, we needed another drummer. We want two drummers. And we'd like you to come down and audition. And I'm going, who is this? You know, I thought it was a joke. You know what I mean? It was just like, I'm in I'm in a fusion band that can't hardly buy a gig, and I'm working at a gas station, third shift, pumping gas, and I'm like, who is that? Anyway, it was Lena LeBlanc, and I said, well, I tell you what, you get me a plane ticket, and I'll fly down, and I'll see. I thought I'll never hear from them again. Anyway, of course I did. I flew down there, got the gig, and so that's how it started, and playing with LeBlanc car was very strange for me. I had come from a band that rehearsed every night, every day, and we were like super high minded. We wanted to play the most out stuff you could do, we were like, messing with odd time and all that stuff. And we were just ate up with it at that point in time. So anyway, I get the LeBlanc car, and it's a true pop band, man. I mean, these guys, it was straight pop. And we learned 13 songs and we went on the road. Now the band I left had about 60 songs. You know what I mean? And I didn't know any of the. I mean, I knew George a little bit because George would come out and see me play. The George Leist, the other drummer, he would come out and we kind of got to be friends, beforehand. And I didn't know Tom Flora at all, and but everybody else, and like Gary Baker, he was, and see Gary Baker and Steve. What's his last name? Steve. Anyway, I can't think of it. I wrote it down. Steve Nathan. Steve Nathan became a huge Nashville. If it's a ballad, country, he played on it. Tom Flora sang background on a bunch of gold records, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we go out and we got 13 songs, it was just bizarre. It was just like, we're opening up for Journey. We're opening up for, all these bands, Jay Giles and England Dan and John Ford, whoever was kind of touring those days. And it was fantastic on one hand, until of course we opened up the last 4 out of the last 5 Skinner shows. They had Pete and Lenny were from Florida, Daytona, Florida, and we played a show with them in like Statesboro, Georgia, and with Skinner, and that was the last one we did. And we went to Daytona, and they went somewhere else, and we were supposed to meet in Baton Rouge, and that's when their plane crashed. So that put an end to that tour immediately. You know what I mean? So then we went. Then the band reformed, and um, they let George Leist go. They wanted to make the band smaller, and Pete Cart really couldn't handle touring. Pete had issues, man. You know what I mean? Fantastic as he was, and I really liked him. He just couldn't handle it. So the band had to kind of reform. Leon Sherrill became the guitar player for the next tour, and we just went with one drummer. And they hung on to me, and so we just went all over the place. The first time I ever saw NRBQ, we opened up for them, and they blew my mind. Of course, I had such a great time. I mean, doing these journey dates. I saw, um, it was Ainsley Dunbar was still the drummer for Journey, and Steve Smith was in another band. What was the name of that band? It was an instrumental band. I can't think of his name, but anyway, Steve Perry loved Steve Smith as a drummer, and he was trying to steal him out of that band into Journey. So I was witnessing, because we did several gigs with him, you know what I mean? And I was witnessing this whole change. It was funny. And Ainsley wasn't digging it at all. He was not a happy camper. And he was like an old sea captain, and the way he talked and everything. It was cool getting to meet him, and Greg Raleigh, he was a gem. He was really nice. And so I got to do a lot of things in that band. That I mean, we went to California and did what was it? Don Kirshner's rock concert, and we did a bunch of TV shows like the Dinah Shore Show and the Merv Griffin Show, and we were out there for probably 4 months. We had a place right there at Hollywood, where Hollywood and Beverly Hills all came together there, La Cienega Boulevard there. And we just run around and do gigs. We go up we never made it up to San Fran. We made it up to San Jose, and we were supposed to go to San Fran the next day because my aunt lived in Antioch, and I was going to get to go see my aunt, but it was like, no, you're going to Fresno. So they were bopping us all over the place down there, and it was cool. I got to do a thing we did a show with right after Tom Waits, and this was like 1970, 78, I guess. And we're doing this show in Chicago. It was just a TV studio. And we go in, and our equipment truck hadn't got there yet. So we're just sitting around in this little studio. I mean, it was not very big, but there's a trash can and a street light and an old tire, and it was Tom Waits' set, his solo set. But I knew of Tom Waits. I mean, I knew his name, but I didn't know what he looked like then. You know what I mean? I just hadn't really seen him or anything. Anyway, I'm sitting there, and he walks up. I thought he was a stagehand. I apologize, Tom, but he just had on a flannel shirt, and he had a couple of beers on a stringer, and he goes, "Want a beer?" I said, "Yeah, I'll drink a beer," And he sat down. We're talking. And he goes, "Where are you guys coming from?" And I'm like, I told him I can't remember where we're coming from, He said, "Yeah, we played a gig in Chicago, and we're doing this little thing." And he goes, "Just waiting on the truck, We just shot the breeze for a little while." He goes, "All right, man, have a good one." Took off, Later, I go to the control room, and they're kind of editing his what he had done, what he had shot. He had just shot it that day, and I'm going, "Well, I was just talking to him." Dummy. But anyway, I got a lot of experience like that. But what that band really taught me the most was how I didn't want to be a side man. You know what I mean? Because I was just a side man. I was just getting a salary. I had nothing to do with putting the material together or how we played it, or I was like, yes sir, no sir. And I realized that's when I said, if I'm going to do this, I want to be in a band that the band gets the record deal, and I want to be part of it, and I want to have a say in things, for better or worse. You know what I mean? Because I just thought it's not as much fun if you're just, I could have gone to Nashville and maybe hooked up and got on somebody's bus, and you know what I mean. And that was that's what a lot of these guys did. You know what I mean? After that band broke up, I mean, Steve went to Nashville, Tom went to Nashville, and Gary Baker just stayed home and became the third writer in I Swear, that was number one country, number one pop at the same time. I said, oh man, he made a lot of money off that. So he didn't have to do that. But that's what that band that it gave me a glimpse of the real music business at that time. Now that music business doesn't exist anymore in that state. So, but it opened my eyes, and I got to hang out with all these guys, man. Like Dick Cooper was Barry Beckett's personal assistant, and you know, all these guys that were playing, the drummers that were playing all the sessions. I got to hang out with those guys. You know what I mean? A little bit, but it was boring living in Muscle Shoals. There were no bars, so there was no local gigs. You know what I mean? If you were on off the road, you were just like sitting there. You'd have to go to Nashville or something to go have some fun. But I don't know. I guess that's. I got to play with a lot of great people. Taj Mahal, we opened up for Taj and stuff like that. Man, it was a blessing too. It had some hard knocks attached to it, but anyway.
Well, let's go back even further, back to Little Flint's Gonna Have a Good Time from 1970. Tell me how you got involved with that and what it was like to record that single.
You know, uh, it was it was the first. Well, Wayne Perry, who became a Nashville writer at one point, he was running around here. We had a band, and it wasn't called Little Flint. It was called the Chamberlain Kids. My stepdad's name was Morris Lee Chambers, and I don't know how we came up with that name, but that's what we were going under. That later got sold. That record got sold, and that's the name they put on it. You know what I mean? Flint, Little Flint. But anyway, yeah, McNutt. He was. I think he was producing this thing. But anyway, we just went into the studio, and um, it was crazy. I'd never been in a recording studio at that point. And I'm like 17, I guess, something like that. And we had this song, "Gonna Have a Good Time Tonight," and we had another song too. We did two songs, and there were the session guys that were that part of the studio. Gene Lawson was the drummer. He's been on a ton of Lonnie Mack records, old Lonnie Mack, and this guy, we called him Jelly Roll. He was on the Super Sessions, bass player, and he played with Three Dog Night. I mean, he was a super talent at the time, and they were there to take over if our band couldn't do it right. And so we're running this song down, and immediately Jelly Roll comes in and says, "I'll be playing bass on this thing." You know what I mean? And so I'm looking up, and there's Gene Lawson, and I'm going, "I'm next. I'm going to get offed." But I didn't. I didn't get off. I did the session. I got to play it, and I sang. gonna have a good time tonight. And I just heard that song. I think that song has been cut hundreds of times. I mean, there's so many versions of that song. It's crazy. And Bob Tickled Pink was playing the other night, and there was just some piped in music at the pub, and it was I'm gonna have a good time. It was somebody else doing it. I don't know who it was, but so that was extremely like fun and like wow, I love doing this. You know what I mean? It just I was already on fire about playing music and actually getting paid, and you know what I mean. It just lit the fire, even turned up the burner, man. So
What was it like for you
that's
to get,
go ahead. Yeah,
what was it like for you to get that first 7-inch single in your hands after that came out?
it was incredible. You know what I mean? It was like wow, man, I'm on a record. You know what I mean? It was like I said, man, the burner got turned way up to high. It was like, I want to do this, and that, and shortly after that, I go to college. You know what I mean? And I get in an 8-piece horn band, and the leader of the band is a college music prof. And it was like, I mean, my brain was like a sponge at that point, man. It was just like, here we go, man. Here we go. I was just crazy with it. That's all I can say. I had the fever, man. I had the fever. But that band really was that little Flint band or the Chamberlain Kids. That was had members in it like Jack Schuler, and he was probably like I was saying he's probably like 5 years older than me or 6 years older than me, and Wayne was older than me, and these guys really helped form me, musically speaking. Um, there was a legendary bar. Um, Now I lived in Lebanon, Ohio, right? And straight west was Hamilton, Ohio, which is kind of in between Cincinnati and Dayton, right? There was a bar over there called the Halfway, and it was part of the Lonnie Mack crowd. Lonnie Mack in my region here was huge. He he and his bands influenced everybody. It ran through the fabric, if you will. You know what I mean? It was the underlying bed for the local musicians that all looked up to him and all looked up to what he was doing. So anyway, like this Jack Schuler, the guy, he's playing guitar in this session we did. He had taken me. I started playing with him when I was like 15, maybe, and we're playing. He's going, I got to take you somewhere. So they take me over to the Halfway, right? We go up and they go in, somebody throws their license over the fence. I get their license and and the doorman goes, come on, man, don't drink. Just don't drink. You can go. So anyway, I go in. There's a horn band. There's like an 8-piece horn band set up in this joint. These are grown men, and this is when the Beatles are huge. This is when the British invasion is huge. These guys were at that time dyed in the wool R&B guys. I mean, they were like, they were so good. I mean, they were just so good. Their quality, and a lot of them were King Records session guys. They had been doing that for years, and anyway, it just changed my whole like, oh, that's how you do it. You know what I mean? Because I'd just been playing along with records and doing whatever I could. I didn't have a teacher. I didn't, you know what I mean? It's like so these, that little band there, it was way more influential than what it really accomplished or anything. You know what I mean? It was just like got me going in a direction, you know. So anyway, but as far as that that record became some kind of weird collector's item in the collector community, which I wasn't aware of, and I didn't even know it existed. I think it was classified Northern Blue-Eyed Soul. That was the collector category.
Yeah, it goes for about
It's like,
seven,
okay,
goes
you
for
know,
about $700 now.
what's that?
Goes for about $700 now.
Is that right?
Yep.
That's crazy. That's great. I hope somebody's making some money off of it. Whoever has it can sell it. Yeah. Yeah, I
Well,
wore mine out.
well,
It turned white.
for those that are unaware, it was compiled into a CD. Do you want to talk about that CD?
You know, I don't really, I think it was just something that Mr. McNutt put together. Um, and I really can't tell you the details on it. It was put together with some other stuff that Wayne Perry had done, and other stuff that McNutt produced. Um, and you know, and he's a real buff. I mean, he's got books on all these old studios, and like King and uh, all of them. You know, every area had one. New Orleans had theirs, and Chicago had Chess, and um, but he's like, I'm not really that. I mean, I have the books, I can look at them, but he knows all that stuff and how that was compiled. I think was for this collectors community. You know what I mean? Um, and stuff that he had done with Wayne Perry. Um, anyway, I don't have much on that really.
So for anyone listening, I believe it was called Sold Out, right? Soul.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, 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 yeah. I sound like a youngin' on it. He's singing the praise.
Well, I'd like to switch gears here, and you have two solo albums we haven't talked about. How do you look back at your 2009 album, Eat the Fat, Drink the Sweet?
What about it?
How do you
How
look
do I
back
look
on
back
how
on
do
it?
you look back on that record and what you achieved with it?
Yeah, you know what? It's probably my favorite of my three solo records. It's only because I don't know. I kind of sat down and wrote that kind of all at once. It wasn't like I had a song laying around from here to, you know what I mean? Um, what it really amounts to is I had been recording with ADATs. It was still tape. Um, and I had one little digital Akai machine, and everything was going to crap on me, and nobody was supporting them. You couldn't get them fixed. Um, so it was like, all right, I got to learn how to do this on a computer, and I was very reluctant. It's like, because I didn't even own a computer. I was like, I went into it. But so I buy a computer, and it's got GarageBand on it, right? It's a Mac, uh, and it comes with GarageBand, and I'm like figuring out how to do it. You know what I mean? I had to get a little. I only had a two banger interface, two tracks at a time. You know what I mean? Um, so I'm just figuring it out, and it's like, well, I got to record something. So I sat down and wrote something to record it. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I put down a scratch of some type, you know, and then I put some drums on it, or I play a bass part. Usually when I write a song, not usually, but a lot of the time, I'll come up with a bass line and a melody and some lyrics. As far as the chords and everything that fills in the middle, that all comes later for me. And lots of times I'll go, "What do you hear on this, man?" Or I'll sing something to a guitar player and go, "No, no, 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 no. Yeah, that's it." You know what I mean? So that's how I get it all together, especially back then. And so anyway, yeah, that's how it happened. And I I just wrote songs, figuring out how to record, and I wrote a lot of songs that were about my people, kind of, you know what I mean? Like Shiny Dollar is on that record, and that's a guy's name. That was his nickname. His name was Shiny. Everybody called him Shiny. His name was Shiny Dollar, and he is his complete character. You know what I mean? He was like pool hustler, sell you a bag of weed kind of guy. You know what I mean? Funny as hell, could dance really good. All the girls wanted to dance with him. And you know what I mean? And so I just started thinking about all these people and it was like, oh, I'll write a song about Shiny Dollar. Or another song on there is Morris Lee. That's my stepdad. You know what I mean? I wrote a song about Morris Lee. And it just kind of went that way, you know what I mean? And I don't know. And I look back on it and it's funny. It sounds kind of homemade because it is. But I don't know. I, I like the songs. I like the songs that came up out of it, and we play them. We play a lot of them out. You know what I mean? From that time, like Tickled Pink or Bucket will play some of them, and you know what I mean. But that's kind of my it's kind of my favorite. You know what I mean? The first one, Troublemakers, that was kind of just an accumulation of different bands and different songs I had. And it's like, okay, you guys know this song, so let's do this. And hey, Raisins, you know this. We did this song. Come do that. And that, you know what I mean? It was that kind of record. And this last one, Special Teams, it's. I mean, I wrote a lot of those songs now, but some of them I had been just orphans, and they've just been laying around, and it's like, I'll try that. But yeah, eat the fat, drink the sweets, kind of I don't know, that's kind of my baby, I guess. I don't know. I like that one. I wish I could have recorded it better in some instances, but it is what it is.
Now, earlier on in our conversation, you mentioned that the music industry you once knew, presumably 70s, 1980s, has pretty much been extinguished and no longer exists. What's your take on the state of things right now in 2025?
Um, it's completely irrelevant to me. You know what I mean? I know it's working for some people. If it's kind of like the rest of the world. It's like you're either gigantic or you're nothing. You know what I mean? As business wise, it's like at the end of every aisle, there's big ice cream and there's big beer and there's big music and there's big whatever, and then there's everybody else trying to eke around for. Um, as far as the music business as a business, I mean, it wasn't perfect then either. I mean, then the labels had all the power and they manipulated. So the bright side of now is you can make a record pretty damn cheap. I mean, you can make a record in your basement that's not bad, bad quality, and you can put it out and you can make CDs if you still want to, if you know anybody with a CD player, or you can just put it online and see if you get some hits. Um, but and that part I like. It's like, okay, we can do it. We can do it. But as far as a business goes, it's pretty mangled. And nobody stood up for the um, for the artists when it came to when it all started. The streaming thing. Who was the first one? It wasn't Spotify. It was who?
Napster.
Huh?
Napster.
Yeah, Napster. Yeah, and the left didn't show up, and the right didn't show up. And they just let it go, man. And it's disappointing. It's also disappointing in the music world, from my music world. I mean, there's a whole nother music world going on that I'm just not part of, and I know that. And I mean, there's a huge hip hop industry, and I appreciate the talent. I really do. And there's just no lack of talent in this world. I mean, there's some amazing things going on, and I tip my hat to anybody in the music business that can make a go of it. I mean, I really do. I don't care if it's polkas or if it's whatever. I don't care. I tip my hat to you. But um, it's hard, man. It's extremely difficult, and there's so many releases, and it's just hard to wade through it all to where you know. So I just hide in my cocoon, man. And music is my cocoon. I got my buddies, and we just do it, and I still get a kick out of it. And that's just about far as I can go. I mean, I'm just not relevant to the real music business of the day. I mean, I'm just not, and I accept that, and I don't care. And I didn't start playing music in the first place to get rich, or I mean, first time somebody handed me $15 for playing a gig at a hayride, I was like, I'm done. I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Um, and I never asked for the world. And maybe that's something that you should get more specific with your dreams. I always thought, man, if I can just make a living playing music, and I'm a happy camper. And I managed to do that. You know what I mean? I mean, worked odd jobs here and there, but I never had to have a complete straight job where I was 9 to 5, and that ruled my world. You know what I mean? And I feel I got what I asked for. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty happy about it, to be honest with you.
Well, you've been part of the greater Cincinnati music scene for decades. How would you contrast what that scene is like in 2025 compared to sort of the Raisins heyday in the 80s?
Well, it's totally different, but Cincinnati has a very, very vibrant music scene. It really does. I mean, to this day, um, I mean, I don't care what kind of music you're into, it's here, and it's good. And I mean, there's a good version of it. I mean, and as far as just the local, the bar scene and all that has changed because there's still live music going on, a lot, but it's changed. And because the youngins are, they're just doing everything differently. And as they should, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, do it your way. This is your time. And um, but man, Cincinnati is freaking loaded. I'm telling you, man, it's loaded. There's so much talent here. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, any night of the week, you can go find something that's pretty damn good, man. I don't care if you're talking stone country, jazz, you name it, man. It's here, and the people that are at the top of those little piles are just so good. I mean, it's crazy how good they are, and a lot of it I think is because Cincinnati has allowed us to exist. Being the town that it is, it's not. a super celebrated music town, but it's supported live local music forever, and um, and just the cost of living here is, I mean, it's gone up here in the last few years, like everything has, but it's still you can live here, man. I mean, it's affordable. Um, I mean, that's why so many of us stayed. It's like, and it's a good town. It's a great town, really. It's everything horrible and everything great. You know what I mean? Since that's Cincinnati right there, man. It's got all the bad and all the good, and I I love this place, man. It's been so good to me. I mean, I don't know. Couldn't ask for much more, really, when it comes to that. But anyway,
All right. Well,
hey,
my
the one
last.
guy I want to mention in this is, um, that. Well, there's a couple names I want to add, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Um, the Troublemakers. I had that little band for a while when I put that record out, and for a while it was myself, Jeff Chambers, and Greg Chambers, who are my brothers. They're my half brothers. We grew up together. Morris Lee was their father, and he was my stepdad. And so we had a band for a while. It was bass, drums, and sax. So that was the Troublemakers for a while, and that was pretty cool. It was kind of like it, like Morphine was a band that was bass, drums, and sax, but we weren't anything like them. It was still doing my songs. And then the other person I want to mention is Fred Thomas. We go way back. We were in a very early band, and he was part of that. Um, the local bands that I was in, like Dillinger was the name of that band. Fred Thomas and I, we wrote a lot together. Like some of these songs, like Habits, is one of my songs that I play all the time. He and I wrote that together. Um, um, we would get together and write a lot. And there was a record called Naughty Bugatti, Ghost Tales. Naughty Bugatti was the band, and Ghost Tales is the record. And Fred never drank a drop, okay, until he became like 42 years old. Somebody came over to his house. His father was an alcoholic, and he knew not to drink. Fred knew. Somebody came to his house, had some hard lemonade, but Fred didn't know it was hard. He drank it, and that was the end of Fred. I mean, instantly became an alcoholic. He was already an alcoholic, but he was instantly introduced to alcohol. Fred was one of probably maybe the most talented guy I've ever been around. Um, but anyway, this record we did, Fred was really struggling, man. And I said, Fred, we're going to do a record. Bring me some songs. And so they're all songs that he wrote. And he sang them. I sang one song, but he sang the whole record. And you don't have that, do you?
I have not heard that. No.
I'll send you one. And did you get Timmy's record
I
that I
did.
sent
Yeah,
you?
I did. Thanks.
Okay. But anyway, so I just wanted to give a shout out to Fred and how much he meant to me musically speaking, and as a friend, of course. He and I and Tom Brooks recorded a lot of music back in the day that never went, never got put on a record or anything. But so I just wanted to mention those guys.
Fantastic. I had one more question for you. What
Sure.
are you motivated as a creative entity today when you get up out of bed to play with one of these myriad bands you're involved in? Tell me about the fire, that perpetually rages inside.
You know, I don't even know if it's a fire anymore. It's one of those things where I just think that's what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, it's kind of like that's what I do. I I love doing it, and I'll do other things to if I have to if I'm needed to go do this, I'll go do that. If it has nothing to do with music or taking care of my family or house or whatever. But in the back of my mind, it's always I need to be doing some music. And, I got to keep doing this. I got to keep writing songs. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I just really feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. That's kind of that simple. Um, because I've asked myself, I mean, I get down, I get discouraged like any other human, you know what I mean? And I ask myself that. Why do you keep, what do you keep doing this? What's the end game? I don't think there's an end game. You know, I just don't, there's no end game. And I just think that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe
Good.
I'll change tomorrow.
That's a great answer.
Cool. Well, man, I thank you for doing this.
Yeah, well,
I,
thank
I
you
can't,
for spending so much time with me here. It was a great conversation.